Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Declo podcast. Today's guest is Adam Arellano, former VP of Enterprise Cybersecurity at PayPal. He's also a startup founder and a lead consultant, working with multiple different companies across the US and abroad, and working with various different startups. And for reference, this is, I don't know, take number 50 of recording the episode, and also my pronunciation of Adam's surname. Apologies, Adam, for my erraticness and the absolute car crash with Zoom. But anyway, we're here, and it's so good to speak to you, Adam. Again, thank you so much for your time. And then, yes, how are you? Are you okay?
Oh, I'm making it. It's been quite the week so far, and it's what, Tuesday? But it wasn't as bad as the 2 weeks prior for everybody in the industry. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
much.
yeah, it's been crazy. A couple of people wanted to talk about it today in some of the episodes, and then they were a bit apprehensive. And then it's like, let's see it in the sense of our community, and obviously lots of people on the other side of it, probably working long hours and ultimately struggling. But anyway, in regards to you, Adam, yeah, run me through your career. Obviously, I've seen aspects of you on LinkedIn. I'm really grateful that you reached out to me on our Slack community, and obviously you're now on the episode, which is excellent, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So yes, take me through career highlights, and then what's going on.
Yeah, so this is the fun part. This is where we'll probably spend more time than we need to because it's me talking about myself, which I love. So I took a very odd path to get into security. When 9/11 happened back in 2001, I was a Mormon missionary in Bolivia at the time. Very interesting place for me to be. Most people that know me from that time frame are surprised at who I am now, and most people who know me now are surprised that I was in that place. But when 9/11 happened, I was living abroad, came home to armed guards, armed National Guardsmen in the airports, and realized that the U.S. was headed for a war. And this was before anything else had happened. And I'm a certified pacifist. I don't enjoy violence. I don't. I've been scared of violence my whole entire life, but I knew that if I was really going to make a difference in the direction of the war, I had to be there. And so, as a pacifist, I joined the Marine Corps and got into the one organization where I thought I could make the biggest difference. And the thing about the Marine Corps that was different is that there exists a level of love between service members in the Marine Corps that doesn't exist quite the same in the other branches of service. And I knew that that was going to be the ticket to helping me help the Marines as much as I could. So joined the Marine Corps. My intent was to become a chaplain. That never happened. But I did start working on F-18s, doing basically repair work on targeting systems. So I was, working on micro miniature electronics and things like that. The Marine Corps was impressed. They liked me. So they told me to go get a degree. And then I asked what kind of degree, and they said they didn't care. So I went and got a degree in social work, which interestingly, all my friends, all my peers getting degrees in law enforcement or history or things like that, never used it a day in their life. But I got my social work degree and I have used it every single day since then. If the joke around the Marine Corps is that it stands for USMC stands for Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, and which is a pretty accurate statement. A lot of interesting folk, especially around that time period that we're joining. So got my degree in social work. The Marine Corps decided I was going to be a communications officer. So they shoved a computer science degree in my face for over the course of about 6 months. This very intense level of detail that we got into. And then eventually became the head of security for Marine Corps Recruiting Command. And so that's the one piece of the Marine Corps that was half in the civilian world, half in the military world, because they have to interact with all the recruits. And that was my first cybersecurity job. And oddly enough, that happened because my very impressive wife, who is a much better Marine than I ever was, got selected by a general to be that general's basically aide de camp or assistant. And we had just been married a few weeks before. And And so she was like, well, you know, I'm married this guy. And they were like, "Ugh, whatever, bring him to put him in the basement." So they literally put me in the basement of the building. And that basement happened to be Marine Corps Recruiting Command. But I, you know, took on that huge job, and really got used to it. And so my, you know, it was the beginning and the end of my Marine Corps cyber career, because I basically spent every silver bullet I had trying to get the Marine Corps to adopt cloud technologies. And this was 2013, 14 timeframe. The Marine Corps is not having it. And there was a lot of generals that knew my name, and that's a bad thing when you're a captain. And so eventually my wife got orders to Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey. I did not. And so instead of splitting up the family, I decided to get out and you know, try my hand in the civilian world as a cyber you know, expert. Ended up landing at Salesforce after a failed startup attempt. Uh, Started a company with my best friend. We were trying to, I don't know what we were trying to do ultimately, but we just wanted to work together. So we started a company, wasted a ton of money, and then I got talked into joining Salesforce with the guise of me getting to talk to their ventures arm, which never happened. But that's how they got me to join, and that was the beginning of my, you know, career outside the military. And it's been interesting. So I was running compliance programs at Salesforce for a while. Went to an artificial intelligence company after that. It was my first kind of executive role post Marine Corps. Was running security and compliance, and then I did a hostile takeover of IT as well at that company. Then most recently, I was at a small startup that was focused on foster care and adoption, which was like the perfect blend of my social work background and my security background, getting to be the CISO there. And then most recently, I had a short stint at PayPal that I enjoyed and don't talk about.
We've been there. We actually had you've probably seen the Greg Vandergast
Mm,
episode, and you know he was quite open about the ups and downs of, you know, he offline he called it that a conscious uncoupling, you
yes.
know, or I might have called it that. I don't know. Like, listen, I've been there, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, that just happens with relationships, and you know, I'm really interested. That's like, you know, obviously I've spoke with people that have been with within law enforcement, military, and everything else, and you know, to me, when I hear Marines, I think of leadership skill sets that you're taught, or it finds you, or it's drilled into you. You know, I'm interested. You know, is there anything you've taken from the Marines in terms of your leadership within your cyber roles? You know, it seems like you're kind of maybe not a conventional type that maybe misconceptions would lead to military. You know, and it seems like obviously being a pacifist and, you know, and everything else you probably may be. And so I'm interested to know, and I hope the audience are as well, to understand, you know, if there's anything that the Marine Corps had taught you about leadership that you used within cyber.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't think of a situation that I couldn't tie back to that time period of my life. I mean, I was a Marine for 14 years. You know, became an adult. If I ever, you know, the closest I ever came to being an adult, I'll say, was while I was a Marine, you know, kind of leading others. But really, what I think the biggest lesson that I learned was that you know, that the Marine Corps has basically two goals. You have mission accomplishment and troop welfare. And one of my mentors in the Marine Corps taught me that if you can't do both at the same time, then why are you even going to do it? If you can't take care of your people while you're accomplishing the mission, then go rethink it and try again, because you have to do both, and they can't be one above the other. You can't take care of your people and allow them to fail at the mission that they have, and vice versa. You can't accomplish a mission without taking care of your people. And really, that translates itself extremely well into, I think, what a lot of people get wrong about cybersecurity, which is, you know, you can't run a team into the ground and have a team. You have to take care of them, and I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark, is they just don't understand how much care and feeding needs to go into this.
Yeah.
There's a talk that I gave recently at RSA in a kind of an you know, an unconference type event where you know, I tell the story of one of my platoon commanders that was my one of my he's one of the 3 or 4 people in my life that actually stood up to me and actually called me on my BS, which is a rare thing. But he would tell us that, if you're standing as a lieutenant in the middle of a group of like 40 dudes and your fingers on the trigger and you're looking down your sights, you've already lost because you're
Yeah.
surrounded by 40 dudes that know how to shoot better than you, that know what's going on better than you. You need to have your head up and looking around and paying attention to what's happening. That's where your job as a leader is not to be in the weeds. It's to be at the strategic level, making sure that you're paying attention to everything that's happening. And so it's one of those things where, um, and I try to tell people that this is, you take it with a grain of salt. You can be a hero if you want. You really can. You can jump in, you can be the CTO that's, in there running database queries, and, you could do that if you want, and it'll be impressive. It'll make your ego feel really good. But are you really doing your people a service if you're the one that's in there jumping on, that's jumping into the fray? And I think as leaders, a lot of times we forget how heavy our boots are. You can't just walk into a room, can't walk into the SOC and look over some analyst's shoulder without completely disrupting that analyst's brain. And if you don't pay attention to things like that and you just insert yourself everywhere, you're creating a lot of chaos in your wake, even if it feels good. And you'll also probably get promoted better, probably, have, your little fan club and stuff, but you're not being as effective as you could be if you were actually letting the people that were experts do their work.
I love that. That's great insight. And obviously, I picked up you'd mentioned being a communications officer, and I'm going to just add in some naivety. I'm assuming you need to learn how to use data and use it correctly. Something I think a lot of CISOs really struggle with, or cyber leaders, and also be able to get a message across quite clear and quite direct. If I'm completely way off the mark, please educate me.
No,
but
that's
but
correct. Yeah.
yeah, and again, talk me through some things you learned as a comms officer then with those kind of directions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 6 month long training that we went through to be communications officers was brutal. I mean, it was tough. Like prior to that, there was a 6 month long course where we learned how to be basic platoon commanders. So a lot of walking around and shooting at things and, attempting to kill people and break their stuff and whatnot. But the communications portion of that was just mind numbing, like 12 hours a day, getting everything that was ever, that you could ever imagine taught to you about telephony, about actual telecom stuff, computers, satellites, you name it, radios, things like that. We had to be experts in that entire thing because at the end of the day, we had to basically, the task that we had was that you go anywhere in the world, doesn't matter where it is, you drop your people down, and 24 hours later, you need to have a complete full network up and ready to go so that you can communicate. And so we practiced that over and over and over again of making sure that we could efficiently do that kind of thing at a moment's notice. And really what it came down to, some of the most important things I learned were around troubleshooting, which I think is, again, a lost art. It's something that I started the journey in learning how to do so as an aircraft maintainer. You've got this $6 million piece of, whatever that's full of circuit cards, and for some reason it's not working. You can't just, run a diagnostic on it. This thing was designed in 1975. Like that's not how things worked in, the late 70s. And you would just have to go through, use your knowledge of the system and figure out exactly what happened. I tell people that you have to find where the magic smoke came out of, because you can never get the magic smoke to go back into electronics. But if you ever let it get out, then that's bad. But learning how to troubleshoot, really break down a problem and figure out where it's actually going wrong is super important. And it's something that I don't think we pay enough attention to. I like to say that, especially at the SOC level, and you're kind of talking about this earlier, everything's focused. I think it was on a previous podcast that I heard it. Everything's focused on reactions, on finding the problem, fixing the problem, things like that, which is important, right? But you can't just be really good at putting out fires. You also need to go find the monkey with the lighter that's out, causing all the fires.
That
That's
damn
just as
monkey.
important. Yeah, the chaos monkey does it every time. But if you can't find the cause, the root cause of these things, then again, what are you doing? Like, why bother? And that's where people, I think that's where they lose the bubble on being, on having a sustainable team that is actually well functioning, is they don't give enough people enough time to actually like sit back, evaluate the problem, and then go look for the source as opposed to just fixing the, firefighting at the end of the day.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And obviously, you went through the career summary there, and talk me through some of the challenges you may have experienced within your career. Again, they can be personal, professional, entirely up to you.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, and one of the things that I've been very open about for, the last 8 years since I got out of the Marine Corps. Has it been 8 years? It has been 8 years. Wow. Um, is the fact that, being a Marine during wartime, I came out of the Marine Corps with PTSD. It's something that I, struggled with hard. And it's one of those things that I don't ever hesitate to talk about because other people need to know that it's there. And it's something that, you can't make it go away by not talking about it.
Yeah.
But some of the struggles that I had, especially in the Marine Corps in the time that I was there at Marine Corps Recruiting Command, I mean, I had to fight the uphill battle against fear of the cloud. And it was a thing that, every general knew my name, which is not a good thing. Like that's a bad thing when you're a captain and a bunch of generals know your name. I remember there's one in particular who's, I think I'm glad I don't remember his name, so I can't ever mention it. But surprisingly got a job at a big Fortune 100 tech company that I was fighting against at the time. Um, as soon as he left, but he would call my boss and tell him like, "Hey, tell that captain to shut up," because
Yeah.
I was routing it up to the powers that be. I had this task to actually secure the Marine Corps' recruiting system, and I knew I couldn't do it by myself. It had to be in the cloud. And so eventually what happened is I was routing position papers. I was sending up messages to the general, and they were all getting captured by this one person in the chain of command that would stick him in his
Mm.
desk. So eventually, what I did is I wrote an article that it's actually on LinkedIn right now, um, about how we could modernize recruiting in the Marine Corps. And it was through cloud computing, basically.
Yeah.
And I got it published in the Marine Corps Gazette, which is like every, general officer's bathroom reading material. And
Yeah.
so all the generals were calling my general, like, "Hey, who is this captain and why aren't you doing this?" And so sure enough, the general comes running down the hall with a magazine, hits me over the head with it, and he says, "Where have you been for the last 2 years? Why didn't you tell me about this?" And I was like, "Sir, actually, I did. I've been trying to
Yeah.
tell you about this. Go check that desk over there to see how many copies of this are in that desk." And so that particular person retired about a month later. But that was the struggle that I had, is just trying to bring common sense to this organization that was not used to institutional change. And it's funny that I fought so hard to get Recruiting Command onto the cloud, and it turns out at the end of the day, every single recruiting arm of the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, everybody adopted the cloud except the Marine Corps is the one that
Mm.
didn't do it. So it's a little bit frustrating, but I feel like I did a good job. And it's what introduced me to the commercial world, and ultimately, it made me successful afterwards. But that was a thick wall to beat my head against for a very long
Yeah.
time.
Let's talk about something that might be keeping you awake at night: cybersecurity. According to Vanta's latest State of Trust report, it's the number one concern for UK businesses. That's where Vanta comes in. Whether you're a startup, growing fast, or already established, Vanta can help you get ISO 27001 certified and more without the headaches. Vanta allows your company to centralize security workflows, complete questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risks to help your team not only get compliant, but stay compliant. Stop stressing over cybersecurity and start focusing on growing your business in 2025. Check out Vanta and let us handle the tough stuff. Head to vanta.com/decode to learn more. Because when it comes to your business, it's not just about keeping the lights on, it's about keeping everything secure. Thanks.
And I guess, let's just say we'll call it an organization. Some organizations, I think maybe they're too proud
Yeah.
to adapt or modernize. And, when you're talking about, cyber warfare or a military front or war frontier, should I say, having the modernization gives you an advantage against your adversaries. So something like recruitment, if it's agile, if it's streamlined, that's because that's where every recruit will be. They will be on their phone. They'll be in an app, or they'll look at a website or a platform, whatever it may be. And I think the age old days of turning up to a recruitment office and getting the hard sale and the pitch, which you've probably been involved in, they're gone. That's for like North Korea. North Korea's 50 years behind, and obviously, just as a kind of side reference, we've obviously had a few military personnel, reach out in the channel and as well. And I've got a dear friend of mine who's in the military, and again, I don't think it's said enough, especially with first responders as well. Again, we thank everyone for their service and obviously protecting their respective countries, regardless of people's ideology and what they think of it. At the end of the day, it's a job, it's a sense of purpose and routine for a lot of people. So again, just wanted to obviously put that in there. So that's quite interesting, the whole challenges around helping an entire entity. I don't know which branch the Marine Corps is of the military, but
we technically we exist underneath the Navy.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
that
well,
modernization.
We like to consider ourselves different. Yeah, like it's like we're fine when other people pick on. The Navy and Marine Corps will go at it. We'll pick on each other. But if somebody picks on the Navy, the Marines are going to stand up and say something about it. But yeah, we're technically part of the Navy. But yeah, it's an interesting place for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but how many people can say that they help modernize or transfer from monolithic to cloud? That's an amazing achievement. And again, I look forward to reading that article, and I'll plug it in on the channel description as well. So I'll link it back. So I make a reference for our co-producer James to put something in. We'll even, I don't know, screenshot it or something, whatever, something cool. But in terms of the topic you want to discuss that needs relevance and clearing up within the industry, hit me with your topic.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this question. What is it that needs to be cleared up in the industry, and really what it comes down to. For me, I think the single biggest miss that cybersecurity people basically, like the one place where cybersecurity professionals miss the boat most often is understanding the business that they're defending. Too often, it's like a punk band in the 80s level of wanting to be, pure punk and never selling out, never gonna like give into the man, like, okay, cool, but also you need to record a record and actually sell it. So like kind of get off your horse and like understand what's happening. And like there's a lot of cybersecurity professionals that are purists about it, and they don't pay enough attention to what is it the business is trying to accomplish, because there comes with that different levels of effort and different levels of okay. So for example, when I was at Salesforce, there's a level of FedRAMP good that we were doing that was important, but at the same time we had to sell the product. And so I made sure that I stayed in close with the salespeople, understood who they were talking to and what they needed to enable that process. Because at the end of the day, it's not a security person that's bringing in budget, and it's not a security person that's funding the paychecks. It's the sales team. So you got to pay attention to them. You got to show them the love and consideration they need to be able to sell well. But that also doesn't mean that you compromise where it's important because of a sales role either. But understanding where the company is going strategically, where the next big thing is for the company, you can be beneficial to that whole process instead of an impediment. As I've been doing consulting over the last few months, kind of sticking my head into businesses sideways for very short periods of time, it's been real eye-opening to see the different levels at which sales has been engaged in those processes. And that's some of the best advice that I feel like I've given to people is like, go get in the pocket of the customer, go get in the pocket of the sales team, figure out where in your world can you make their job easier. And you'll be surprised at the level of engagement you'll get from them, how much help they'll give you, and et cetera, et cetera. It's one of the things that I learned most closely at the startup I was previously at. They just spent time with customers. all the time. Constantly we're in with a social worker or with, you know, a family that's going through the foster process, just paying attention to exactly what they were doing. And I thought that that was an amazing parallel to be drawn with your own customers, you know, depending on what business you're in. You need to understand what they're up to and what's important to them so that you can facilitate that instead of, you know, just being like the, you know, the budget sink that, you know, you have to buy all the expensive stuff and do the craziest things for, you know, for the sake of doing it. But yeah, if I could, aside from everybody should be a social worker and go get a social work degree, which I think is super important. Everybody should do that. Short of that, I think you know, spending time understanding the business and understanding budgets is where most people are missing the boat, and they should do better about it.
I completely agree. I mean, you touched upon sales individuals. You'd be actually surprised how much they need your help, because they understand that if the security items are, you know, organized, structured, whether it's nice package thing they give to a customer and it says, here's all the security documents, that helps them execute a trade quicker, or a transaction. And I think people forget that security should be able to scale and be a business enabler.
Yeah.
You know, we shouldn't be sitting there like, hey, salesperson, you know, you're absolute rubbish, we can't do this, or whatever it is. You should be involved in their pipeline so you understand what's coming up on the horizon. So then you can justify to the organization and say, hey, Max wants to execute 10 million on these deals, but actually I'm like a couple of resources short.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost me $500,000. Then someone says, so we spend $500,000, unlocks 10 mil. That's a no-brainer. You know, these kind of synergies, I don't think enough people can tap into and or understand the strategy that helps allow the revenue generation. And also everyone wants to be educated. You'll be surprised how many people just like, if you can make it personal and relatable to them, they're gonna listen, and they're gonna go, okay, we don't want to do this because it's gonna expose a deal or expose a customer or whatever it may be. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you are going to miss the opportunity to do that kind of work if you're always heads down in the weeds. You really need to be thinking like, you know, the rest of the executives in the company about strategy and about what's coming next. And I think we would all do much better to kind of get away from that. But this is one of my like pet peeves or topics that I always cover is this idea that, you know, being highly technical is always a compliment. Like sometimes, yes, it's super important, you know, but most of the time you're kind of getting in the way if you're not letting your people do their work. And, you know, your two hands on one keyboard are worth much more when you're exercising, you know, the time of 50 people as opposed to just your own time. But yeah, I go on for ages about that because it really bugs me that people get in the weeds like that and don't pay attention to the strategic more.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, fighting words for quite a few people. But
yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And the I mean, we'll whiz through the episode tonight, which has been excellent. But our final item, which I hope that you can have a bit of fun with, is the one thing in cyber you think is BS and needs a focus or needs to change, and you can go wild.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest answer to this is degree requirements. It just is silly. I mean, I honestly cannot even like, and I'm not talking down to anybody's, you know, anybody's path in particular, but I've dealt with a lot of very junior people in cybersecurity who have been on a treadmill that their parents put them on when they were 6.
Yeah.
And that treadmill, you know, got them into, you know, the exact right AP classes, that got them the exact right volunteer opportunities, that got them into Stanford for their undergrad in computer science, that got them into their master's program. And they step off of this, you know, this rat race of a treadmill, and they have no experience. And everything's been laid out before them, and they are as valuable to me as someone who steps out of a, you know, a community college program or a junior school program that has all, you know, most of the same classes but without all the fluff. But these people coming out of, you know, the certificate programs or from the community colleges actually have drive and have a desire to, make the right moves, to work hard, to pay attention to what's going on, those people are the ones that I want to pay attention to most often. So personally, and I think I complained about this once too loudly, and was then invited to help a local community college with their program. And so I started doing it. But that's where I always go to. I've decided I'm just kind of done with universities. Like, going through university is fine. That's cool. And there's plenty of opportunities, internships and things like that. Awesome. I only spend my time at community colleges talking to them, because that's where people that, are bringing in diverse backgrounds are going to be coming through those programs first. So I've been working with a local community college here to revamp their entire curriculum for AI and also for security. And now they have a completely operating certificate program for security and AI, which is one of the first, schools in the nation to do so. So it's the thing that I wish people would relax about the degree requirements.
Yeah.
Selfishly, with a social work degree, I have a reason that I want people to stop paying attention to that. But it's a valid. It's a thing that I've never been blown away by somebody's master's, but I have been blown away by somebody's drive to get into the industry through whatever means necessary.
Yeah, it's, there's some episodes that are coming in future, and it's been a central topic that's really irked people. And, again, we're not saying that we're hating on anyone coming from universities, right? I don't want people thinking that, but I totally get it. Whereas in, maybe let's say a different path where there's maybe less stress, less pressure, you're not in that rat race essentially, or you're not competing against the 1% of the 1%. Like you mentioned, like a Stanford, whatever it is, an Ivy League school, these people, out of 100 or 1,000, 5 or 10 of them are going to be lucky to get a top end job in cyber.
Yeah.
And even then, there's still going to be a requirement for having skill sets. Someone could give you a resume and they're like, hey, I worked on this project. And it's like, well, what hands-on skills do you have? I would rather take someone, back to your point, whether they're degrees, certified, whatever it may be, if they have shown external work or projects, like, hey, I volunteered at this, or hey, I've got a Hack the Box account, or I've got multiple other things, or here's some stuff I've been learning in prompt engineering, or whatever it may be, or some projects, that then shows you that there's been not only they choosing a different path, but it's probably they're going to be a lot more interested in what you have to throw at them. They'll be able to adapt quicker rather than someone that's been institutionalized since the age of 6 or whatever it may be, and they're going to really struggle to adapt to various different things. I've had someone talk recently about a kind of Gen Z mindset where it's like, hey, I'm not going on a meeting at 9 a.m. And it's like everyone else in the company needs to go on the meeting. And it's like, this kind of entitlement of someone that's like, I'm just going to keep being trapped in the education cycle. They'll have multiple degrees, they'll have a PhD. Then it's like, where does it end? At what point do you say $1 million in student debt is enough? It's like, go get a job, get some experience, get hands-on, make mistakes in your life. Find some good mentors that are going to say, hey, don't worry about that, or try this direction, rather than, back to your parents or whatever it may be that's keeping you in the matrix.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's interesting is that people coming from those diverse backgrounds, you stick a roadblock in front of some people that have been, their life has been programmed, and they're going to stand there and stare at it and wait for it to move. And then the people that really know how to get around things are the ones that, they're the ones that you want on the team. And that's consistent.
The ones that have struggled, the ones that are diverse, the ones that know it's ultra competitive. They know in the core of them, they're like that imposter syndrome, but that imposter syndrome will drive them. To drive them to succeed and fail, pick themselves back up and keep going. And then before they know it, they're a CISO and, they're on the podcast, rather than someone who's like, a stereotypical Ivy League. And then this is going to come back to haunt me. I'm going to go for a job interview in the future. I don't know when. And it's going to be, I remember this in 2024, you had a mixed opinion on it. It's like, I'm not bashing it. It's just, I know so many people that have had so many different routes, but 80% of the people that don't go through getting a cyber degree and everything else, the 80% of the ones that don't do it are the ones that succeed the most. So maybe there's something in there, but we could probably debate this endlessly.
We could violently agree on this for a very long time.
And I'm interested, Adam, like as a kind of closing note, why do you think there's such a hang up about degrees? Why do you think there's such a push on it? I'm interested.
Because you have to have something to measure, right?
Right.
It has to, there has to be a way that you can signal basically to an employer or to an employee that this is, a hurdle that you've jumped over. And honestly, like the places where, my lack of a computer science degree, even though like I have basically gone through a computer science program, but it was, Marine Corps style and very painful. The places where that has stood in the way of me being employed are the kind of places I wouldn't want to be in the first place, because they're the kind of places that pay attention to that kind of stuff. And it's, it's one of those requirements where it says a lot about the rigidity of a company and a lack of creativity if that's something that they're going to rely on. But that's really what it comes down to, is they're looking for an easy metric that can be measured or shown that says that somebody is or isn't worthy of their time. And they're going to get what they are asking for, which is fine. They'll get some highly educated people, but they're going to miss out on some truly creative, really smart people that just didn't come from that background. And if there was ever an argument for diversity, trying to solve the world's biggest problems, you have to have a diverse set of people that have different ideas, that have different experiences. And you deny yourself that as a company if you don't pay attention to people that don't come from those standard paths.
Yeah, I love that. And on that note then, Adam, we will wrap up the episode. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on the podcast finally. And I know you've been lurking in the background, and it was like I had a list of people and I'm like, well, I approach them, I don't know, but it's just one of the things. But anyway, I won't keep you any longer, Adam. And again, I'll say to our audience, please follow Adam, please show him some love. And again, like, subscribe, share, and all the usual YouTube jargon that comes with it. And again, Adam, thank you so much for your time. Thanks again.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, Leo.